In the late 1980s, a Western stormed into theaters that didn't just revive the genre, it reshaped it for a new generation. Young Guns, released in 1988, wasn't your grandfather's dusty cowboy movie. It was loud, fast, rebellious, and packed with young stars who would soon dominate Hollywood. But behind the gunfights, iconic one-liners, and MTV-era swagger lies a far more complex story, one that blends history, myth, and Hollywood invention. Health Wealth Diary presents the real story behind the movie, Young Guns. Young Guns was the very first film produced by Morgan Creek Productions, and from the start, it aimed to do something different. Instead of portraying Billy the Kid as a distant folk legend, the film reimagined him and his gang as young men, reckless, emotional, and shaped by loyalty and betrayal. At the center was Emilio Estevez as William H. Bonney, better known as Billy the Kid. Emilio portrayed Billy not as a traditional outlaw, but as a volatile mix of charm, ambition, humor, and rage. His Billy was impulsive, deeply loyal, and dangerously unpredictable, a performance that turned the outlaw into a pop culture icon for a new generation. Kiefer Sutherland played Doc Scurlock, the philosophical sharpshooter whose quiet intelligence gave the group its moral weight. Lou Diamond Phillips brought energy, humor, and heart to Jose Chavez y Chavez, instantly making him one of the most beloved characters in the film. Emilio's younger brother, Charlie Sheen, portrayed Dick Brewer, the reluctant leader struggling with responsibility in a lawless world. Rounding out the Regulators were Dermot Mulroney as Dirty Steve Stevens, Casey Simasco as Charlie Beaudry, and Terrence Stamp as John Tunstall, the mentor whose death sets the entire story in motion. Long before Hollywood turned him into a wisecracking outlaw, Billy the Kid was just a boy trying to survive the violence of the American frontier. He was born Henry McCarty in New York City in 1859. His early life was marked by instability and loss. After his father disappeared from his life, Billy moved west with his mother, Catherine McCarty, settling in Kansas and later New Mexico. When Catherine died of tuberculosis in 1874, Billy was only 14 years old and completely on his own. Billy's life changed forever in 1877 when he killed blacksmith Frank Windy Cahill during a fight. Claiming self-defense, Billy fled back to New Mexico, where he found purpose working for cattleman John Tunstall. When Tunstall was murdered in 1878, Billy joined the Regulators, seeking revenge during the Lincoln County War, which would also be the setting of our movie. The film follows English cattleman John Tunstall, who hires a drifting young gunman named William Billy the Kid Bonney to join his group of ranch hands, known as the Regulators. The group includes Doc Scurlock, Jose Chavez y Chavez, Dick Brewer, Dirty Steve Stevens, and Charlie Beaudry. Tensions escalate when one of Murphy's men, McCloskey, defects to Tunstall's side, and Doc begins courting Murphy's Chinese ward. On New Year's Day, Murphy's hired guns murder Tunstall. In response, Tunstall's lawyer, Alexander McSween, arranges for the Regulators to be deputized and issued warrants for the killer's arrest. As the Regulators attempt to carry out the law, Billy grows increasingly reckless, challenging Dick Brewer's leadership. His impatience turns deadly when he kills several unarmed men, including McCloskey, whom Billy suspects of betrayal. The press soon labels the Regulators as a violent outlaw gang, led by the infamous Billy the Kid. Now hunted across the West, the Regulators fracture under pressure. During a peyote vision quest led by Chavez, they are tracked down by Buckshot Roberts. A brutal shootout follows, ending with Roberts killing Dick Brewer before the Regulators destroy his barricade. The group scatters and a wounded Doc breaks away. Chavez reveals that Murphy's corruption led to the massacre of his mother and her Navajo tribe, urging the others to abandon revenge. Billy instead takes control, fully committing to avenging Tunstall. Doc reunites with Murphy's ward, Yen's son, and rejoins the gang as they assassinate corrupt Sheriff William J. Brady. When McSween revokes their badges, the Regulators become fugitives, but Billy insists their violence will expose Murphy's corruption. After fleeing to Mexico, Charlie marries a local woman. Meanwhile, Pat Garrett, soon to be sheriff, warns Billy that Murphy's men plan to assassinate McSween. When the Regulators return to Lincoln, they walk straight into an ambush. Murphy's forces, aided by famed gunman John Kinney, surround McSween's home, trapping the group in an all-day siege. U.S. Army troops arrive under Murphy's orders, set the house ablaze. McSween's wife is allowed to escape, and Chavez slips away. In a daring move, Billy hides inside a trunk thrown from the burning house, ambushing the attackers. Chavez returns with the horses, allowing some to escape. Charlie Bowdre and John Kinney kill each other. Dirty Steve dies while helping a wounded Chavez flee, and McSween is gunned down by a Gatling gun. To end it with a bang, Billy confronts Murphy and kills him with a single shot between the eyes. In the epilogue, Doc reveals that Chavez later worked on a California farm. Doc moved east and married Yen's son, and McSween's widow became one of the most successful cattlewomen in the West. Murphy's corruption network collapsed, ending the Santa Fe Ring, and Billy the Kid continued riding, until he was eventually killed by Pat Garrett. In reality, after the war ended, most of the Regulators faded into obscurity, but Billy didn't. He continued rustling cattle, evading the law, and killing when cornered. Newspapers exaggerated his crimes, inflating his body count and turning him into a symbol of lawlessness. By his early 20s, Billy was already a legend and a wanted man across the Southwest. In 1880, Sheriff Pat Garrett captured Billy, and he was sentenced to hang for the murder of Sheriff William Brady. In April 1881, Billy staged a daring jailbreak, killing 2 deputies and escaping once more. 3 months later, on July 14, 1881, Garrett tracked Billy to Fort Sumner, New Mexico. In a darkened room, Garrett shot and killed him. Billy was just 21 years old. Like most historical films, Young Guns walks a fine line between truth and entertainment. While it captures the spirit of the Lincoln County War, many of its most memorable moments are either exaggerated, condensed, or entirely invented. Let's break down what really happened and what Hollywood changed. In Young Guns, John Tunstall is portrayed as an older, fatherly figure who rescues lost young men and teaches them discipline, culture, and morality. In reality, Tunstall was only 24 years old when he was murdered, just 6 years older than Billy the Kid. He wasn't a father figure so much as a business mentor and employer. While he did encourage education and structure, the film ages him up dramatically to strengthen the emotional impact of his death. In Young Guns, the Regulators are depicted as a tight-knit group of 6 men. Historically, the Regulators numbered 11. The film reduced the group to simplify storytelling, absorbing traits from real Regulators like John Middleton and Fred Waite. In the film, Doc Scurlock is romantically involved with Yen's son, Lawrence Murphy's Chinese ward. In reality, this relationship is completely fictional. The real Doc Scurlock was already married to Maria Antonia Miguela Herrera before the Lincoln County War began. There is also no evidence that Murphy had a Chinese mistress or ward. The climactic siege in Young Guns lasts roughly 2 days and ends with McSween being killed by the army as the house burns. In reality, the real siege lasted 5 days. McSween was killed by Murphy's gunmen, not by the U.S. Army. Also in the film, several Regulators and bounty hunters died during the final battle. But in reality, Charlie Bowdre and bounty hunter John Kinney all survived the Lincoln County War. Their deaths were added to heighten tragedy and provide narrative closure. At the end of the siege, Billy shoots Murphy between the eyes, killing him. In reality, Murphy wasn't present at the siege and was never killed by Billy. He later died of cancer. His death also did not bring down the Santa Fe ring, which continued operating afterward. In the film, Pat Garrett appears briefly as a looming threat. In reality, Garrett and Billy were acquaintances and possibly friends before Garrett became sheriff. Their relationship was more complex and personal than most films portray. Despite conspiracy theories claiming Billy survived, historians overwhelmingly agree that Billy the Kid was killed by Pat Garrett on July 14, 1881. Billy was dangerous, but newspapers exaggerated his crimes. His rumored body count of 21 kills, one for each year of his life, is almost certainly a myth. Most historians credit him with fewer than 10 confirmed killings. He was buried next to Charlie Baudry, where someone later carved the words, "Pals." Many critics were divided. Some praised the performances and energy of the cast, while others criticized the film for its historical inaccuracies and stylized storytelling. Still, audiences showed up in force. Young Guns debuted at #1 at the U.S. box office and ultimately grossed $56 million worldwide. The success of the first film led to Young Guns 2 in 1990. Emilio Estevez returns as Billy alongside Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips. William Peterson takes over the role of Pat Garrett, bringing a darker, more personal edge to the story. The sequel leans harder into myth and tragedy, charting Billy's rise as a full-fledged legend and his inevitable downfall. Framed by an older Doc Scurlock reflecting on the past, Young Guns 2 blurs the line between memory and history, cementing Billy the Kid not just as an outlaw, but as an enduring American myth. Despite the mixed reviews, audiences embraced the sequel. The film performed solidly at the box office and became especially popular on home video. In 2025, Emilio Estevez confirmed that a third installment, Young Guns 3 Dead or Alive, is officially in development, reviving the franchise nearly 4 decades after the original film. The project is expected to revisit the legend of Billy the Kid from a new angle, blending unfinished history with long-standing myths surrounding his death. Young Guns was never meant to be a history lesson. It was a reminder of how legends are born. The real Billy the Kid lived fast, made brutal choices, and died young in a world that offered no second chances. Hollywood didn't create his myth, it reshaped it, turning a troubled teenager into a symbol of rebellion, loyalty, and defiance. Between the facts and the fiction lies the truth. The Wild West wasn't built on heroes or villains, but on young men caught between power, survival, and violence. Young Guns captured that chaos better than most films ever dared to, and that's why the story still echoes decades later, because legends don't fade, they ride on.
Regulators!
We want to hear from you. Who was your favorite regulator and why? And do you think Billy the Kid was a product of his time, or a legend Hollywood helped create? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe to The Health Wealth Diary.